So you book that perfect getaway, a fun-filled, once-in-a-lifetime dream vacation on the high seas. You're picturing yourself on deck, totally worry-free, just sailing towards paradise.
And that dream is exactly what the industry sells, right? That glossy brochure.
The perfect picture.
Exactly. But the reality is that sometimes the open sea hits rough waters, and that promise can turn into a nightmare, whether it's a huge mechanical failure that strands thousands of people or, something far worse.
Right.
The fundamental safety and legal protections you think you have, well, they often just evaporate the moment you cross that 3-mile international limit.
And today, that's what we're doing, a critical deep dive. Our sources are coming directly from a series of U.S. Senate committee hearings on consumer protection held after a really bad string of incidents.
Yeah, really bad string.
And our mission here is to dig into these oversight documents and uncover two really critical issues the Senate was looking at. First, the need for actual physical safety reforms, and second, the shocking lack of transparency around passenger rights and, maybe most importantly, crime data.
Those hearings, you could just feel the frustration. The lawmakers were meeting only 16 months after they got what the chairman called empty promises from the industry to clean up its act.
16 months and nothing had changed.
Well, serious incidents were still happening. And the problem, the root of it all, was this one central issue, jurisdiction.
Which brings us to this great piece of physical evidence. The chairman, in one hearing, he holds up the main piece of evidence, the passenger ticket contract itself.
Oh, the fine print.
He called it a multi-page document printed in the smallest type he had ever seen, designed almost exclusively to detail how little liability the cruise line has.
And that tiny type is.
Yeah.
It's really the perfect symbol of the whole regulatory challenge. Almost all major cruise ships are foreign flagged. They fly the flag of, say, Panama or the Bahamas.
A flag of convenience.
Exactly. It's a practice known as flagging out. And it lets them move legally through multiple jurisdictions, which complicates everything.
And crucially, this means they operate outside the full reach of U.S. labor, environmental, and importantly, tax laws. The reports showed this let two major lines earn over $17 billion in profit over 7 years.
$17 billion.
While paying just a 1.3% in U.S. corporate income tax.
It's just staggering. That's the economic engine driving all this complexity. They use our infrastructure, our ports, our customer base.
Yeah.
But their profits and their liabilities are shielded by this jurisdictional maneuvering.
And that's what makes it so hard to get recourse when that dream vacation goes sideways.
Exactly.
Okay, let's start with the hardware side of this equation. The physical safety failures that really push these hearings to happen. The number of incidents in just 1 year, 2013, it's pretty staggering.
It really paints a picture of systemic failure at the time. Professor Ross Klein, who's a leading expert, he testified before the Senate and he just listed them off.
What was on the list?
In that 1 year, 3 ships running aground, 5 separate fires, 2 collisions, and 19 major mechanical problems.
19.
Yeah, including, total power loss and serious propulsion issues. It was a lot.
That doesn't sound like just bad luck. That sounds like an industry pushing its operational limits way too far.
Which is why we heard some of the strongest criticisms in the hearing, like from the former NTSB chairman, Jim Hall. He flat out called the maritime industry an outlaw industry.
An outlaw industry. Wow.
Watched over by, in his words, paper tigers, like the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, because ships just flag out to operate outside of what he called reasonable safety standards.
That is a brutal assessment of international oversight.
It is.
So if that's true, how can the U.S. Coast Guard be so confident? Admiral Servideo testified that the Coast Guard sees its program as the strongest port state control program in the world.
Well, that confidence comes from something called port state authority. Think of it like this. Because these foreign ships want to dock in U.S. ports and take on U.S. passengers and spend money here.
They have to play by our rules.
They have to play by our rules. The U.S. has the power to enforce its own strict safety standards on them, no matter what flag is on the back of the ship.
Okay, so it's about where the ship is, not just where it's registered. So what does that robust USCG inspection actually look like?
It's incredibly detailed. It starts years before a ship even launches. The Coast Guard's naval architects review design drawings, focusing on fire and life safety plans.
Before it's even built.
Oh, yeah. They even do mid-construction inspections overseas. And then once the ship is active, it gets inspected at least semi-annually on a risk-based schedule.
But even with all that, we still had 3 groundings and 5 fires in 2013 alone. So does inspection actually equal compliance? Or is the industry just waiting for the Coast Guard to catch their mistakes?
That's the tension, right? But we do have clear examples of the Coast Guard using that authority aggressively. I mean, look at the famous case of the Carnival Triumph.
The ship that caught fire and was just stranded in the Gulf of Mexico for days.
Right. So after that engine room fire, the Triumph tried to return to service, but it failed its inspection. The captain of the port formally detained the vessel.
So they just said, nope, you're not sailing.
Refused to let it take on passengers until every single deficiency was corrected. They even mandated that because it was detained, it would be subject to way more frequent inspections for the next 3 years.
So the threat of detention is the real hammer here. And the investigations after these disasters, they did lead to actual procedural changes, which is a sign that the system can learn.
It can. The 2010 Carnival Splendor fire is a perfect example.
What was the big lesson there?
That investigation found critical errors in both human performance and system design. The crew. They were found to be unfamiliar with the engine room layout, which made it harder to fight the fire.
Not what you want to hear.
No. And the ship's CO2 firefighting system was improperly installed and just plain flawed. It wasn't just a technical problem, it was an operational one.
So to fix that operational part, the regulator, the Coast Guard, had to step in.
Precisely. As a direct result of what they found on the Splendor, the Coast Guard changed its policy. Now, their inspectors have to witness a live fire drill in the engine room on all foreign cruise ships at least once a year.
So they have to see it with their own eyes.
They have to see the crew do it in the highest risk area of the ship. That's a huge, tangible improvement. And the cruise line responded with hardware, too.
Right. Carnival.
Yes. Carnival put in a reported $300 million fleet-wide program to enhance redundancies, emergency power, upgraded fire systems. So the first takeaway is pretty clear. Regulatory pressure can force technical safety improvements.
Okay, so now we have to shift to the second and honestly much harder battleground, fixing the soft systems, the legal system, and transparency. Congress found that passengers haven't, and I'm quoting, inadequate appreciation of their potential vulnerability to crime.
And this is where we get into data that seems to be deliberately obscured. The key law here is the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act of 2010, the CVSSA.
Okay.
It was supposed to shine a light on crime at sea. It required cruise lines to report specific serious crimes involving U.S. nationals to the FBI.
And these are really serious reports. Homicide, suspicious death, kidnapping, assault with serious bodily injury, sexual assaults, theft over $10,000.
Right, the worst of the worst. And then the Coast Guard is supposed to publicly post a statistical list of those alleged crimes.
Supposed to.
That's the legal requirement.
But this
is the aha moment from the Senate report that caused the most outrage. Let's just look at the numbers for 2011 and 2012, the first 2 years under the law.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Get this. In that time, cruise lines reported a stunning 959 alleged crimes to the FBI, and that includes voluntary reports, too.
959, reported to the Bureau.
Correct. But the number the Coast Guard actually posted for the public to see?
What was it?
31.
Wait, 31 out of almost 1,000.
Yeah. The number of alleged crimes reported internally to the FBI was 30 times higher than the number you could find as a potential passenger.
30 times. That's unbelievable. Yeah. So even if you only look at the mandatory crimes, the homicides, the serious assaults, what was the gap there?
It was still huge. 130 reported to the FBI versus the 31 reported publicly. Whoa. Over 4 times higher.
Okay, so what is the technical loophole that allows almost 97% of these allegations to just disappear from public view?
This is the crucial legal distinction. Unlike crime reporting on land, where, local stats usually reflect all complaints made.
Right.
The FBI interpreted the law to mean they only had to report incidents that are, quote, no longer under investigation by the Bureau.
So if a cruise line reports, say, a serious sexual assault, but the FBI looks at the initial evidence and decides not to open a full investigation, or they close the file because of insufficient evidence, that allegation just vanishes.
It vanishes from the public record.
Exactly.
The incident is effectively made invisible to you, the public, because it was reported and then internally closed. It never met that very narrow threshold for public disclosure. The law, as they interpreted it, created a shield.
That just completely undermines the entire purpose of the act, which was to increase passenger awareness.
Completely. And the review found an even more disturbing subset of victims being hidden by this process.
Which was?
Crimes against minors. They are alarmingly unrepresented in the public data. In 2012, the FBI data showed that 10 out of the 29 sexual assault victims reported that year were minors. age 0 to 17.
10 out of 29, so over a third.
Yes, that incredibly high proportion of child victims is completely inaccessible to parents trying to make a decision about a family vacation.
Which brings us to our last segment here, the final battleground, consumer protection. So, facing all this bad PR, the industry, through its lobbying arm CLIA, unveiled a passenger bill of rights. 10 points guaranteed to passengers. Sounds good on the surface.
It sounds wonderful in a press release, doesn't it? But this is where the contradiction between that fluffy Bill of Rights and the fine print of the ticket contract just becomes, well, frankly, cynical.
Okay, give us an example of that contradiction.
Let's take medical care. The Bill of Rights guarantees full-time, professional, emergency medical attention. A vital safety net, you would think.
Of course, absolutely.
Now look at the ticket contract. It almost always states that the cruise line disclaims all liability for any negligent acts of the physician.
Why? How can they do that?
Because the physician is often classified as an independent contractor, not a cruise line employee.
So the cruise line guarantees a doctor will be there, but they take no responsibility for whether that doctor is any good.
And this has legal precedent. Courts have actually upheld this. The cruise line is not liable for physician malpractice, so you have a right to medical care, but absolutely no legal recourse against the company if that care is negligent.
And there were also serious concerns raised about the baseline qualifications for these doctors.
Yes. The CVSSA law requires them to have a specific license, a physician or RN plus 3 years of experience. But critics pointed out that the final language in the law allows staff who might not be licensed in the U.S., Canada, or the U.K.
Which would make it incredibly difficult for a U.S. passenger trying to pursue a malpractice case.
Precisely. You're dealing with language issues, different legal cultures, and just the sheer difficulty of trying to track down that person for a lawsuit once you get home from a foreign-flagged ship. It's a maze.
What about the simplest issue? Getting your money back. If a cruise is cut short by a mechanical failure, like the Triumph, the Bill of Rights promises a refund and a flight home.
But the industry practice is often to offer onboard credits or discounts on a future cruise instead of cash.
Ah, so not a refund.
Not a cash refund.
Yeah.
And there's zero transparency on how any partial refund is even calculated. The Bill of Rights promises a right, but gives you no way to enforce it.
So the industry writes its own Bill of Rights, and they also get to dictate the compensation, the terms, and even where you can sue them, which takes us right back to the fine print.
This is where their legal defense is just ironclad. The contracts have those extreme limits on liability, but they also severely restrict where and how you can even bring a lawsuit.
You're talking about the forum selection clause. What does that mean in practice?
It means the cruise line picks the court where you have to sue them. For example, Carnival requires all lawsuits to be filed in Miami. So if you're a passenger from Seattle who got hurt, you have to fly across the country, hire a Florida lawyer, and file your suit there.
That's a massive deterrent.
It's often prohibitive. It's designed to be.
And the final insult for the consumer is the class action waiver.
Absolutely. The contracts almost always ban you from joining a group lawsuit. So it forces every single victim to pursue their own costly individual case in the cruise line's hand-picked city, ensuring that only the absolute most serious and high-value claims ever see the light of day.
So let's wrap this up. What we've uncovered is, on one hand, immense pressure has led to real, concrete, technical safety improvements, new bridge procedures, mandatory fire drills.
Our systems.
The hard systems have gotten better. But on the other hand, transparency about crime data and your actual legal recourse remains incredibly deliberately opaque.
That is the ultimate tension, isn't it? The physical ships are safer, but the soft systems, the legal framework, your access to information, that's what still fuels these intense calls for real legislated consumer protections.
And it is worth noting, while a crime on a ship might be statistically rare, Senator Begich showed data that serious assaults were at 3.8 per 100,000, which is much lower than major U.S. cities at 27.1.
That comparison completely misses the point.
It does.
The point is access to justice. If something happens to you in a U.S. city, you call 911. The legal process is clear. When you're a victim on a foreign flag ship, you enter a legal labyrinth where your rights are almost entirely dictated by that tiny contract you signed without reading.
The economic framework is the foundation for all of it. Despite massive tax-sheltered profits, the most basic information, like the true number of crime allegations or clear enforceable rights, it's all obscured by legal complexity and these technical data loopholes.
The industry really relies on that veneer of a dream vacation and on your trust in government oversight that may not be as transparent as you think.
So the crucial question for you, the well-informed traveler, is this. When you book that ticket, are you buying a dream vacation or are you simultaneously signing a liability waiver written in unreadable fine print, trusting that the information the government requires them to disclose is actually visible and meaningful to you? You really need to consider the economic and legal framework that governs your time at sea, because once you are outside that 3-mile limit, you are operating entirely on the cruise line's terms.